women are, we're wired to go deep, right? With, our feelings, our emotions, right? Our relationships. This is why women become consumed and they get lost in romantic relationships specifically, right? Because we go into the relationship, hoping for certain results. And those results are rooted in delusion, illusion, fantasy, right? And when you are guided by that, when that is the driving force of what you want to create with this person, you have blinders on. And a lot of men prefer you to have those blinders on because it's easier to deal with women who are not facing life on life's terms. When you don't face reality of what you are involved in, what you got yourself into, which women tend to do, women tend to bury their heads in the sand and not really pay attention to what is going on. When you are in that space, it's easier to sell you hope. It's easier to convince you that things will get better, even if the evidence is showing you that it's not going to, that things are what they are. And I believe that women stay in that space because it's easier to deal with what could be than what is. And women don't know how to compartmentalize people in their life because women are like all or nothing. This is why we'll cut people off when we're not receiving what we want from them, right? Women expect the people in their lives to be 100% of what they want, and that's not realistic, nor is it fair to put that kind of expectations on humans. Humans are fallible, right? Humans are figuring out their way, right? No one can be 100% of what you want, right? That's a selfish way of thinking, but because women want the fairy tale, they want the fantasy, they hold on to those delusions and illusions of perfection. So what does it mean to compartmentalize someone in your life? It means to recognize how this person is benefiting you, and wherever that person benefits you, that's where you keep them. Not trying to merge them or put them in compartments they don't fit in, where they won't do well in. You got to be able to see that in people. Wanting someone to be 100% of what you want is an unrealistic expectation. And it requires you to accept people as they are. But women have a hard time doing that because women don't accept themselves as they are. To be able to say, this is my strengths, these are my weaknesses, and I love myself anyway. It's hard for women to do that because women want to be perfect. Right? This is why women will sit around and pick apart other women, look at their imperfections, because that's what they do to themselves. So it's hard to look at someone and say, this person is good at that. Let me put them in this space and leave them there until they prove otherwise. That is detachment, right? That is the decentering of men that women should be doing, right? Detachment from anyone and anything. It doesn't have to be only men, but we tell women to detach from men, center yourself in your life, right? Put yourself first. But what does any of this mean, right? It means to recognize what benefits you, who benefits you, keep them in that space of benefit, right? Allow people to benefit you where they benefit you, keep them where they are, and everyone is benefiting you, right? Because you are centering yourself in your reality. because your reality is about you. It's not about other people. Other people participate, um, they benefit you, they love you, or whatever it is, but they are limited to whatever their strengths are. And you must compartmentalize those that you love as well. Right? And that's the hardest part, because people you love, people that are close to you, right? People in your world, in your circle, you want them to enjoy all parts of you, all things that bring you joy, that you want them to celebrate with you and all these things. But everyone ain't for everything, including people who may be in your world, who you may love, who you may be partnered with. Right? And it's not about having a life outside of them that they don't know about. It's about knowing who will pour into what edifies you. They're not going to do that. Everybody's not going to be able to go deep with you. That doesn't mean they don't love you or don't want to be a part of what you're doing. But you got to be able to recognize who you can share things with, who must remain over there when it's time for this thing, who must come in when it's time for that thing. You got to really be able to delegate your life like that and not feel like you owe people. Because again, with women, our way of connecting is by sharing. And this is why we'll get with a group of women and start sharing the personal details of our life, because that's how we connect. And women feel betrayed when they don't know something about someone. But it's hard to build with people. It's hard to develop connections with people and have resources and, a community if you try to put everybody in the same space in your life. You can't. You are the center of your world, right? And only you can be 100% involved in what you're involved in. Everyone else has their own life to live. No one can be 100% consumed in your life and what you got going on. So how do you know who fits where? You listen to them, right? So for example, social media is a big part of my business. Social media is not my business because I'm not an influencer. I take women from my social media platforms and bring them to my offline spaces, bring them to my website, because Divine Lady Magic is my business. Social media is the vehicle to promote and market and connect with women, right? It's a huge part of my business. So if I hear someone say social media is not important, it's not a real thing, if I see that they're very dismissive of what's important to me and my business, then I don't share that part of my life with them. It doesn't mean that I don't like the person or I don't want the person around or that they're a bad person. It just means to me that that part of my life that's important to me is not important to that person, even though the person never said that. But how the person views what's important to me shows me that it's not really important. It's not real, because this is what the person said, right? No heat, no judgment. It's just that the milestones, the achievements, the accomplishments that I make within my business, I just won't share with that person because they don't view it important enough, right? That person I may share other parts of my life with that person, right? I don't try to force people into believing in what I believe in or making important what I think is important. I don't think people have to show up for you because you want them to. I don't believe in forcing people to be and do what I want them to be and do because it makes me feel good. That's not genuine, it's not authentic, and it's not realistic, and it's not respectful, right? Everybody doesn't have to be involved in everything. I just know that person is more beneficial in other areas of my life. The people that view what I'm doing as important, that is who I will share what's important to me with, right? When it comes to a thing, whatever the thing is. I was having a discussion with someone about how women respond to my messages online and how, emotional they get and even violent they can get, violence as in, the things they say about me. And the person just kept saying, you're just some random person online. Why are they letting it affect them, right? And eventually I had to tell the person, I'm not just some random person online. Now, I understood what they were saying. Basically, a stranger shouldn't have an effect on you the way that they do. But I'm not just some random person that's just online saying things, right? Although I don't call myself an influencer, I have a lot of influence. And influence is the greatest power, right? This is why people have a visceral response to me, because I am influencing them, right? But that's how the person views what I'm doing, because subconsciously social media shouldn't have that much importance or weight to them. I'm on the thing that shouldn't have so much importance and weight, so that's how they view it. Right now, I know now not to discuss what goes on in my business of social media with that person, because to them, even though I understood what they were trying to say, the way they perceive what I'm doing and people online is how they perceive me. And so I got to hold them to that. Again, not saying that the person is a bad person, not saying that, they shouldn't be in my life. I just keep them where they benefit me the most. And that way, I don't get let down by how they truly feel about what I'm doing in that area, right? And this could be for anything. I'm just using that as an example, because a lot of people say that it's not social media is not real. People who say that are either have not monetized what they're doing, they're just online lurking. They just don't understand what's required to do what I do. And because people view social media and people who make it a business, they view it as a lark, meaning something that's easy to attain, something that's not really serious. That's how they're going to perceive what I'm doing. Although it's not, because if it was that easy, why don't you just start a platform and do what I do, right? If you're not in my corner, you're in my way, right? And that's how I compartmentalize people. And the people in your life, they're not going to be in your corner for everything that you do. It's not possible, because people have their own lives. So if you're not in the corner of what it is that I'm doing, whatever I'm doing in that moment, then you're in the way. And I can't have you in the way of that space. So I got to put you where you're in my corner. Again, this is difficult for women, because women want people's approval. They want acceptance. They want, support, when you're not always going to get these things from people. And women oftentimes let themselves down by expecting so much from people. Learning how to believe people when they tell you things and keep them where they belong is going to save you a lot of headache and heartache. This is why women complain about, oh, I thought this person was this, or I thought this person was that. No, they showed you who they were, and you wanted them to show up in a space in your life that they were not capable of showing up for you for, right? So when I found the Porsche that I was going to buy, I needed a man, right? Because, You got to show up with men in certain environments, just the way that it is. And car dealerships is one of them, right? Now, I had been looking for my car and doing these things myself, but when it was time for me to really do what I needed to do to get this vehicle, I called my brother, because I knew that there was no other man that I knew that was willing to be in my corner in that venture I was taking on. He was going to be the one in my corner. The rest were going to be in my way, and I just put them in the compartment they belonged in. Not that there's a lot of men in my life, but the men that I could talk to, and they weren't going to be in my corner the way my brother was. And that's okay. I don't feel slighted by it. It's just that they weren't the person for the job, right? Women have to learn how to use people. Not in a bad way. I'm not saying use people and discard them. But you'll get the most out of people when you use them for their strengths. And just how I compartmentalize people in my life, I compartmentalize myself in the lives of others. And I allow them to show me by way of what they tell me and what they expose me to in their life. I allow them to do those things so I can know where I fit in their lives. I don't try to make a space in someone else's life for me. That's not my role. My only role is to be who I am and allow them to decide where they want me in their life. Again, I'm not trying to be all of anything to anyone. It's not possible, right? I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, and I know what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. And I don't expect for anyone to not get what they want and need because I'm not going to show up where they may want me to show up. If I'm not capable, I'm not capable, or I just may not be willing. Right? And so this is where the performing comes in for women, because women want to be all of what others need. And so women will perform their way into people's lives. I don't have the time or the resources to do that. Right? I'm building my own life. I have my own thing going on. So others are going to have to find what they need from other people. And I'm here to be whatever I can be for whoever is in my life. And they have to accept that or they just don't. And I accept that. I accept that from others, and I require that for myself. And we're clear about who's doing what, who's where, what compartment the person is in, and we're very clear about that. We don't have to say it, oh, I won't invite you in this space in my life. Like, we don't have to do that. Like, let's not be ridiculous. But people know, right? When there are things going on and you're not invited, it's because you're just not a part of that person's life in that way, and that's okay, right? You are the center of your world. Other people are just participants in it. Allow them to participate in the places that their strengths benefit you. Again, this is difficult for women because women get consumed with things that they're involved in, especially when it comes to relationships. And this is why women end up losing themselves. This is why it's almost impossible to decenter men and be in a relationship with them for many women. Not that it cannot be done, but it's almost impossible because of how women operate. Women are performing for male approval. And men are not going to allow you to really decenter them when they already have a program for you. So oftentimes men will be okay with whatever you're doing, right? Go to school, do all the things that make you happy. But eventually you have to be settled in reality of your role, which is to be a wife and a mother. It's unfathomable to a lot of men that a woman would be happy without doing these things. And oftentimes they view it as you wasting your life if you're not doing those things. Like someone said in my YouTube comments, you're not a mother, that's why you're unhappy. I didn't even bother to correct him, right? I raised my daughter. My daughter's 32 years old and she's a doctor. I did my job, right? So, but people don't see women in doing things that makes them happy, right? And so men will put you in positions to perform for them, right? This is why I said it's almost impossible to self-actualize being in a relationship with a man because of women's way of performing and proving. Your self-actualization, you centering yourself, will cost your relationship in some way. And when you're on a man's program, he's not going to really allow that. Right? So you got to be very clear about what you want. Again, anything is possible. But just watch how men respond to women who are not married, who don't have children, who are not living the traditional. They don't view them as, it's not serious. They're not real people. It's not serious. You're only real and respected when you are going along with a male program, even if it's not with that particular male. Right? So it's very hard to compartmentalize when you are supposed to be consumed with other. Just this past Friday, a man asked me, "You don't go on summer vacations?" So I said, well, summer vacations are for people with children that are out of school and who have to coordinate with their spouse on time off from work so they can take the kids to school. I don't have to do that. I don't have to consult or collaborate with any other adult when I want to bust moves. I have that luxury, right? And he wasn't concerned about me going on vacation. He don't give a fuck about me going on vacation. He just wants to know about my life, right? It's unfathomable to men for women to just be existing in life and be happy. There has to be a man there. There has to be a man benefiting, right? I always get the questions, how was your weekend? And when I say, oh, it was quiet, people are like, what? I mean, what the fuck do you expect me to be doing? Jumping on couches in the club on the weekends? I don't do that. I like quiet, right? But because people don't hear about a man, they know I don't have small children, so they don't understand what I'm doing with my life, right? So it goes along with the social media thing not being real. So whatever a woman is engaging with that doesn't have anything to do with a man and children, then what are you really doing with your life? It's confusing to people because you cannot possibly have a fulfilled life without doing what you were born to do with it, which is be with men and have their children, right? When you can have a fulfilled life and have none of that going on. And oftentimes those things interrupt your fulfilled life, right? I've been married and I had to raise a small child at one time, right? And this is why I don't have any more children. It's difficult for women to compartmentalize their lives because of what's really expected of women, what's expected of the roles we're supposed to fulfill, what we expect from ourselves, not wanting to disappoint people, wanting to be accepted, wanting to be, praised. And there's so much going on with women. Why we don't know how to prioritize ourselves. Why it's so difficult to really decenter men without not dealing with them. Because decentering men doesn't mean you don't have relationships with them. That's not what that means. Right? So that's one of the most important and the most difficult lessons to learn is to compartmentalize people. And not just men, women too. Your girlfriends too. Sometimes you can't merge friend groups. Sometimes your friends are for specific things, specific outings, for specific conversations. Everybody can't all be friends. Everybody can't all be in the same compartment. Stop trying to force people to like each other because it makes you feel good. And this is what women do. Sometimes people don't want to meet your man. Right? Sometimes people don't want to meet your best friend of the last 15 years. You have a life outside of that best friend. You're allowed to make friends outside of that best friend and they don't have to know each other, right? But women want to make themselves happy, but not as much as they want to make other people happy. They want to create communities with people. And that there's nothing wrong with that, but it cannot be forced. Right? And you have to keep in mind that you are the center of your world. You are supposed to be centered. And what benefits you should come first. But it has to be organic, right? It cannot be forced. Again, compartmentalization is very, very hard for women. Because women, they don't like to reject people. Right? And again, telling each other business, having everyone involved, and that makes women feel good, but it's not realistic because everything ain't for everyone, and everyone doesn't belong in every aspect of your life, right? You got to know where to leave people sometimes.